In Paris, as we just heard, of course, another holiday weekend in the city marred by violence. Here's a bit more of what Mayor Lightfoot had to say earlier today at a ribbon cutting for a new track and field facility and After School Matters site.
We must continue to urge our young people to put down the guns. We have to love them. And tonight and today is about love. It's about making specific investments in our young people. I'm also old school and believe what my mother taught me, which is we love them, but we also must hold them accountable. And we must also show them the way to a different kind of life.
Joining us now are three people working to try and improve communities. They are Tony Salam, Director of Ready Greater Englewood Outreach at Heartland Alliance, which works to address trauma and increase opportunities for young men at risk of gun violence. Liz Dozier, founder and CEO of Chicago Beyond, which seeks to fight pervasive inequities in Chicago communities. Dozier is also the former principal of Finger High School. And Brenda Palms-Barber, president and CEO of the North Lawndale Employment Network. Welcome back. Welcome all of you to Chicago tonight. Thank you for joining us. Liz Dozier, let's start with you, please. How do you think the city and the police department are doing in their response and their efforts to reduce the city's gun violence?
Well, I think that anyone who picked up a newspaper today or turned on the television would say that we're not doing good as a city. The city is not well. We are under siege. And all of us need to do better. And I think that too often times we look at this in isolation of one particular area of the city, for example, the police doing the things that are going to save our city. And that it is not possible. We have to look at this from a holistic perspective in terms of what is going to reduce violence. It means we have to fund and support direct community level programming. We have to support systems level programming. And we have to realize we did not get here overnight, and that systemic racism is the cancer of this country, and that violence is just one of its many insidious symptoms. And in order to alleviate it, again, we have to think holistically.
Tony Salam, this is something that you work in, every day as well. And after a weekend like the one that we've just had, you have to keep going, of course. How do you maintain, the optimism that you can create change when you're confronted with what we saw this weekend?
Well, first of all, it's always a very saddening and dark occasion when you hear about 100 and some individuals being shot over a holiday weekend and children being murdered, etc. So what I do is I take some personal satisfaction in terms of understanding that we have people on the ground that's doing this work, people who have committed themselves and dedicated themselves to put their life on the line in order to have our community safe. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this particular initiative. However, it's saddening me that we have to go through this as a community, as a Black and brown community. And so my desire and my goals is to continue to work in this space because it's necessary for everybody, not only just the police department, but this is a collective effort, a collaborative effort between all the organizations and citizens and community members to do something about this pandemic. It is
one of those, sorry, I just want to get Brenda Palms-Barber in here because, we just heard Liz Dozier talk about investing in, our community organizations and programming. What kind of a difference could you make with a significantly scaled up program? How many more people could you reach?
Hi, Candace. I'm sorry, Brandis. I think that's for me. I think that we're actually right now in play. There are a number of violence reduction programs and initiatives that are each doing incredible and impactful work, but we're actually operating much more at a boutique kind of level of impact. And what's exciting to me is that we're all coming together to say, how can we have significant population impact in reducing violence throughout the city of Chicago? And I think that we all have interesting different methodologies, but we all share the same vision and hope, which is that these young men that we're working with can in fact be what all of us want to be, which is a good citizen. And I think that what we're trying to get to here is the root causes behind this violence. And I think we can't simply police ourselves out of this. It's just impossible to say that, policing is the answer, because it's not, nor is just a single job the answer. Sometimes you'll hear people say, oh, just give a person a job and that, that's the best antidote to a bullet. But in fact, what we've learned through Chicago Ready and through some of our other partners in this work is that it is a very complex and sophisticated set of issues. And in my personal opinion, really the root of this is poverty. When you live in communities where there are not enough resources and not enough options, then people are left to make poor choices. We've also learned that unidentified and untreated mental health issues are rampant in the populations that we serve, whether it's a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, but that those folks are not accessing the kind of mental health support that they need. Substance abuse is a substitute for treating some of those challenges.
You talk about the complex, you talk about the complex web of issues, and some might say lack of education is one of those. Liz Dozier, as a former school principal, how much can we expect schools and the education system to be able to help to address these issues?
Well, I just want to back us up, Brandon, because I think we do this too often. I think we problematize our communities. We problematize Black people, brown people, and we try to go out and solve those individuals or solve Black people or brown people. And really, to truly alleviate violence, we have to look at what's happening in our communities from a holistic perspective. The systems that were supposed to provide a quality education, healthy income, rehabilitation, they have all consistently failed. And we can tie those back to systemic racism. And so, for decades, Chicago has neglected the health and prosperity of the South and West Sides. At every level of government, we have either explicitly facilitated or we've ignored the exploitation of Black and brown communities. And while, banks and other key institutions have honestly done the same. And so at Chicago Beyond, what we believe is that those same institutions that have participated in that have now had this incredible responsibility. And that's what I mean by all of us have to do better. They have this incredible responsibility to build these communities back and to build them back in a holistic way. And so whether it's, we think about JP Morgan and, investing, 41 times more in white neighborhoods as opposed to in Black neighborhoods, or we think about, 37% of Chicago's young Black adults are unemployed compared to 5.7% of white adults. There's a whole bunch of things we need to do. It's not just about police. It's not about any one institution. And so Chicago Beyond, again, we believe in holistic healing. We believe in this whole approach of not just one singular issue.
And before we run out of time, Tony Salam, you and the host of people that work with you at Ready, at Heartland Alliance, you've been able to achieve some results in reducing violence. Very briefly, so 20 seconds, I apologize. How have you been able to do that?
Well, we have identified the most highest risk individuals. Since the program launched, we have served over 800 individuals connected to programming. Our participants are 45 times more likely to be murdered or shot by, so also 80% of our participants has been experienced the violence. 35% of them are at least been shot one time. So we provide CBT, cognitive behavior intervention, transitional employment, case management, and wraparound services. And so, like Liz was talking about, a holistic approach.
Sorry, Tony, that is where we'll actually have to leave it. But we're thankful to have spoken to you and Eddie Bocanegra and others at Ready, and done more, of course, with our firsthand gun violence series that is available online. But we'll have to leave it there for now. My thanks to Liz Dozier, Tony Salam, and Brenda Palms-Barber for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A pleasure.